The House will come to order. The member from Hennepin, Representative Long.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As a reminder, we are on the appeal of the ruling of the Speaker, and I ask members to vote yes. The 16B.2406 is not in the underlying bill. That is in the amendment, and it is custom and usage in our House that it needs to be that one of the main factors we look to is whether it is the same chapter or section of law. It is not, and so I would ask members to vote to uphold the ruling of the Speaker.
The member from Stearns. The Minority Leader, Representative Demuth.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, just remember that we are under a call of the House, and I would encourage a red vote to rule against the ruling of the Speaker.
The clerk will take, is there a roll call has not been requested?
Madam Speaker.
Okay, the light went off, so we'll just turn the little light back on. A roll call has been requested. But I'm sure even if it wasn't requested, you could produce the 15 hands. So roll call has now been requested. There's 15 hands. There will be a roll call. The clerk will take the roll. Members, we're under call. Please vote. Each member must vote for themselves and themselves only.
Madam Speaker,
Representative Long.
I move that those not voting be excused from voting.
Representative Long moves that those not voting be excused from voting. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. No. The motion prevails. Those not voting are excused from voting, and the clerk will close the roll. There being 70 ayes and 53 nays, it is the judgment of the House that the ruling of the Speaker Pro Tem shall stand as a judgment as a decision of the House. Representative Long.
Madam Speaker, I move that the call of the House be lifted.
Representative Long moves that the call of the House be lifted. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. The call of the House is lifted. There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Joy moves to amend House File Number 1830, the second engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A14.
The member from Clay, Representative Joy.
Thank you, Mrs. Speaker. This amendment is a good amendment. It's just a minor amendment. What this amendment does, it deletes everything in the bill and provides appropriations for state agencies and bodies equivalent to the 2022 and 23 base. I move this amendment. A little bit about this amendment is what it will do is it'll slow things down for us. You know, we heard things today from Representative Koznick about we're spending $10 billion this year in Minnesota. And, you know, by doing this, we slow things down. Every one of us had people in our office saying they cannot hire people, teachers, paraprofessionals, everything, so they cannot find people to do jobs. We're looking at adding 158 new employees to this bill. 158 new employees to the state of Minnesota. I guess we got the magic wand here to hire people. I guess we know how to get people to work for us. But everywhere else, everybody comes to us and says, we can't find bodies to do this, but we can do it. So I don't understand why we don't take this, a green vote. And with the labor shortages, this is what we need to do. You know, as we continue to move through this session and we move all these bills through and everything we're doing, I feel we're going to eventually bankrupt Minnesota. You know, when you do stuff like that and continue to add taxes to people, we're not funding nursing homes because, you know, we don't want to fund nursing homes. We don't want to drop Social Security. I just have a problem. I think deleting all and just following what we do is what we should be doing in this bill. We just came from debate of what we kind of know what's in the bill, what's not in the bill, and we figured that out. So this amendment, I think, is an important amendment. We can take this, move this bill forward, take this amendment on there, and decide what we want to do next year with this bill. And I will also request a roll call.
Roll call having been requested, seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call.
So I guess with that, I will. Would love to talk to anybody that can convince me this is a good bill. You know, when you look at, we're going to give checks, rebate checks, and everybody like that. Why don't we use that money for nursing homes? The $234 or $290 people are going to get. I bet people will give it up for the nursing homes to stay open. It's going to cost us more than that. You know, I mean, I am just, this session has been my first session, and I tell you what, it's been an overwhelming session. The Democrats continue to put more onto us, to add more. This isn't what people want. Nobody wants 158 new employees. By the time we get done this year, I'll be surprised to see how many employees. One, can we fill the jobs? No. So do we just create 150 new employees because we think it's a good idea? I don't think it's a good idea. You know, so thank you.
There's an amendment to the amendment. The clerk will report the amendment.
Nadeau moves to amend the Joy Amendment to House File Number 1830, the second engrossment as amended. The amendment to the amendment is coded A46.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Nadeau.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members. It's been a long night, and I'm gonna go really quick. This is a very simple amendment. Minnesota students, they deserve stability, but without our help, without us prioritizing teachers, recognizing those staffing shortages that we have, we're not going to get there. Reliable pensions that are fair honor our teachers. And they're going to help us recruit and retain the best educators. My amendment doesn't solve the world with pensions, but it makes a start. And it helps us prioritize by putting our vote and our money where we believe that the next generation of our leaders are coming from. So this amendment is simple. Did I move my amendment yet?
You don't need to move it. I did. Representative Nadeau.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You did not ask for a roll call.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So my amendment is pretty simple. It takes the savings from Representative Joy's bill, and it transfers $400 million over to the TRA pension plan. Now it's not a ton. I think it needs to be a lot more, but that's what I could do with this amendment. There's a couple of options that we can make. By combining that with what's in the pensions bill, it creates about $550 million. That will buy down 1 year, from 66 to 65. It will reduce the penalty, the early penalty retirement for a 62-year-old teacher by 7%. This is a step in the right direction. State government is going to be fine. They're going to be fine. Our teachers, our students, our schools are not going to be fine. And I'm not picking on the governor. I'm not picking on anybody. This is a good amendment that can focus those resources where we want to go. And now, Madam Speaker, I will request a roll call.
I had a feeling you would. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Any discussion to the amendment? Representative Klevorn.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Representative Nadeau, I appreciate your kind heart and your good intentions. I am going to encourage a no vote. We will be hearing the pensions bill, I hope, soon on the floor, and we are working very hard with the chair to serve our teachers, and the bill has the largest one-time investment in pensions for our teachers. So let's wait for that pensions bill. I think this is a little premature. There's still time for us to do more good work together. Members, I'm going to ask for a no vote on the amendment to the amendment.
The member from Dakota, Representative Koznick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I appreciate the comments of the chair, Klevorn. Representative Nadeau offers a neat idea, and unfortunately, when we heard the pensions bill in the tax committee, the author, the chair of the pensions said, we need to raise taxes, adding a fifth tier, because her bill did not dedicate the revenue raised, which, by the way, overall, we're raising $10 billion in taxes this season under the Democrats' plan, so that your amendment, Representative Nadeau, would actually help the pensions plan, where the fifth tier income tax proposal doesn't dedicate it towards the pensions. And so I like your amendment, and I think we should support it.
Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll. We can pause if Representative Myers really wants to say something. The member from Hennepin, Representative Myers.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I really want to thank Representative Nadeau for this amendment. My mom and dad were teachers. My sister is currently a teacher. And we all know that educators are the foundation of our schools. And, you know, we've been through a lot here tonight, but I would think this would be the one amendment that we could all agree on. Teachers have looked to us. They've come to our offices. They've been out in that rotunda. I mean, I've gotten emails from hundreds of teachers in my own district and teachers from other districts. I just want to applaud Representative Nadeau for pushing this forward. I'm hoping everybody can support this, and let's get a green vote.
The clerk will take the roll. Members, please vote. The clerk will close the roll. There being 56 ayes and 73 nays, the amendment to the amendment is not adopted. Representative Joy, we are on the underlying amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Nadeau, that was a great amendment. I didn't think about that when we were going to save some money there and put it instead of investing in 158 more employees in Minnesota. But everybody, I encourage you to vote green. Thank you.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Klevorn.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I'm just going to ask you to vote no. This amendment really keeps the systemic disinvestment that we have seen over the last few decades in place. We need to be moving forward. We need to be supporting our state government and building a strong state for Minnesota that serves all Minnesotans. Please vote no.
The clerk will take the roll on the amendment. The clerk will close the roll. There being 59 ayes and 70 nays, the motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. There's a motion at the desk. The clerk will report the motion.
Long moves that Rule 3.33 relating to amendments must be pre-filed, be suspended for the purpose of offering the Torkelson RA 23-004 amendment to House File Number 1830.
Representative Long.
Madam Speaker, that is my motion. I ask that members support the motion to suspend the rules so that we can vote on a negotiated agreement with Representative Torkelson.
Any discussion on the motion to suspend the rules to take up an amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Torkelson moves to amend House File Number 1830. The second engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded RA 23-004.
The member from Brown, Representative Torkelson. Two-year amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is the amendment being passed out?
It looks like it is, Representative
All right,
Torkelson.
very good. I will speak to the amendment. It's short and easy to read. This amendment deals with the Capitol Barber. Most of you know that the Capitol Barber service has a service in the basement of the SOB. The Capitol Barber Shop has been here since 1883 on this campus, and the Capitol Barber has been in the SOB since 1932. It's the oldest operating barber shop in the country. Ken Kirkpatrick, former president of the National Board of Barbers, sold the business to his son Josh in the recent history, and Josh is now operating the business. The newly minted amendment is actually an excellent amendment. It will require that the Capitol Barber have space in the state Capitol building, the crossroads of activity here on the St. Paul campus of Minnesota government, and I urge you to vote green.
Any discussion to the amendment? Representative Klevorn.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, this is a good amendment. I'm glad to see that we have this bipartisan amendment. Please vote yes.
All those in favor of the Torkelson amendment, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. There's a motion at the desk. The clerk will report the motion.
Long moves that House Rule 3.33 relating to amendments must be pre-filed, be suspended for the purpose of offering the Schultz RA 23-007 amendment to House File Number 1830.
Representative Long.
Madam Speaker, I ask that members support this motion to suspend the rules to allow an amendment from Representative Schultz to be taken up.
Discussion on the Long motion. Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Schultz moves to amend House File Number 1830, the second engrossment as amended. Amendment is coded RA 23-007.
The member from Morrison, Representative Schultz, two-year amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. This amendment, I believe it's the 823-007 amendment, speaks to a greater issue about our capital area complex and the way that the public engages with its government, and by way of ensuring that as Capitol buildings across this complex are built, that we make sure to insert some language to protect the green space of this Capitol complex. We found a way tonight to have some language before us that would ensure that there is, and specifically, no net loss of green space on the Capitol complex with additional construction that may occur. And so that's the amendment, members, and this speaks to a greater and larger point. The community that lives here in St. Paul, around the Capitol complex, is seeing decisions made by this body that aren't taking their voices into account, and it's wrong. And further, we're not following the right process. This body in this chamber voted on a piece of legislation in the last biennium that didn't account for the voices of the Minnesotans who live here. And members, when we think about green space, when we think about the space just to the north of our state office building, and the Minnesotans that exit the light rail, they should feel safe. They should feel welcome for all different cultural and ethnic backgrounds that they come from. And somehow, this body failed to recognize that over the last 2 years. So tonight, that's why we're offering this amendment. I urge support of this amendment. And let's make sure that we're doing well by the community that lives here. Because in case you haven't heard, and in case you don't drive the road that drives right through it, there's a lot of work to be done to ensure the safety of the community right here around the Capitol complex. Thank you, members.
Representative Klevorn.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I would like to, one, acknowledge your commitment to the Capitol Mall complex and protecting the green space around our community as well. And to the amendment itself, it is an important amendment in that we all want green space. We all want to see the plan of Cass Gilbert, that the mall of the Capitol is the front yard for the state of Minnesota and the Capitol surrounding community. Thank you very much, members. I encourage you to vote green.
Representative Schultz.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. She just touched on a point that is worthy of note here, because if any of you have reviewed a certain plan for a certain building, which we may one day have the chance to occupy in a greater fashion, there's actually massive concern, because the designer of our Capitol and this Capitol space did not design for there to be a building immediately to the west of our Capitol, which accentuates the point that we should not be spending $500 million when Minnesotans are dealing with the cost of crazy inflation in this state. We need to be better stewards of our taxpayer dollars and protect the hardworking Minnesotans of our state.
The clerk, all those in favor of the Schultz amendment, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. There are no further amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House Bill number 1830, as amended.
Third reading as amended. Discussion to the bill. The member from Brown, Representative Torkelson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I'll be speaking in relation to the elections portion of this bill. This evening, we are voting on the second major elections bill in less than a week. And while there are many provisions in this bill that do have bipartisan support, there are many other ideas that only Democrats support. That's why I'm calling it the Protect DFL Victories Act 2. Just like last week's bill, we will again likely see a court challenge. Last week it was express advocacy and First Amendment rights. This week it is questions regarding the constitutionality of the national popular vote. I will remind you again that Minnesota has a long history of bipartisan support for election bills, and governors from 3 different parties over the last number of decades requiring that elections bills that reach their desk be bipartisan election bills before they were willing to sign them. That has been abandoned this year. As evidence of this, Republicans introduced 71 elections-related bills. Out of those 71 election-related bills, 1 of them was heard in the Elections Committee. It actually received warm support, a lot of support in the committee, but it was not included in either of the election bills that we've heard on the floor. No Republican bills have made it into either omnibus elections bill. Governor Walz expressed publicly in 2019 that he expected election bills to be bipartisan. The governor has flipped, is now willing to sign a partisan bill, and he is justifying this flip with the false narrative that every Republican is denying the results of the 2020 election. Minnesota elections have a long history of nation-leading turnout and high voter confidence. Many of the provisions in these bills will have a negative impact on voter confidence and burden local election officials with higher costs and heavier workloads. We could have worked together to present a bill that both parties could support, but instead we have the Protect DFL Victories Act 2.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Greenman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I am really proud of this bill. This is a really good bill that reflects the values that we have both as a state government and as a democracy that works for all Minnesotans, no matter where they live, what they look like, or who they vote for. This is an important bill that meets the moment, a moment that calls for us to protect and strengthen democracy. There's so much in this bill that I am proud of. Chair Freiberg, you put together a really good elections bill. But you've heard a lot from me talking about strengthening the freedom to vote and the voices of Minnesotans, and the hour is late, so I just want to talk about one provision in this bill, the election worker protection provision to protect election workers and our local elections infrastructure. In Minnesota, we have a proud tradition of trusted and strong local elections administration. Every year, 30,000 of our friends and neighbors in every community in the state pitch in to help prepare and staff our polling places, prepare and send absentee ballots, and process the ballots and canvass results. Since the 2020 election and the January 6th insurrection, their job has gotten tougher and pressure more intense. The Minnesotans who've worked in the background doing apolitical work of ensuring our elections run smoothly are unfortunately been thrust in the limelight with its increasingly political environment, heated rhetoric, disinformation about voting machines, social media, and an irresponsible and misplaced target on their back. If you were in Elections Committee, you would have heard the eye-opening results of a survey conducted by an elections administrator from Blue Earth County on behalf of the Minnesota Association of County Officers. 57% reports of election workers who responded say they've been intimidated while performing their duties. 46.2% say that they've added additional physical security measures to their polling places. In Minnesota, by passing this bill, we have the opportunity to act together to show our local elections officials that this conduct, threats, interference, intimidation is unacceptable. We can say clearly that intentional interference or tampering with machines will not be tolerated. And something else I'm really proud of in this bill, it includes for the first time ever, sustained and permanent funding for the counties and local jurisdictions who are administering our elections. It doesn't seem like much, but it's a big deal. It's a big deal because it's the state of Minnesota saying and showing our commitment to trusted local elections administration and putting our money where our mouth is. This bill invests in the infrastructure of our democracy, a democracy where all Minnesotans are at the center. And members, I would ask you to vote yes.
The member from Carver, Representative Nash.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Chair Klevorn, I will tell you that I have appreciated many of the things that we've gotten done in committee. I have enjoyed our conversations about IT. I will tell you, members, that we had a great conversation about public television one day. And I would love to vote for parts of this bill. I really would. I am very pleased to see that the needs that we have at Minute are being addressed. And I want to thank our both partisan and nonpartisan staff in the committee. You all have worked very long hours, and I'm very grateful. We have, I think, a very good working relationship, Madam Chair. And as I said, well, here's an example. The language that we have in here that has had some level of controversy between Minkoji and the OLA, we are going to need to exercise that agreement that we have and probably take it out in conference or work on it so that we can get it agreed upon. Somewhere in there, we have to achieve that so that we can make sure that those stakeholders achieve what they are really hoping for. But members, as much as I would like to vote for parts of this bill, I can't vote for the bill. And you have heard me say this quote before, but it's a great quote. It's from Oscar Wilde, so it's a very respectable. And it's, "The bureaucracy is expanding to meet the needs of the expanding bureaucracy." The bureaucracy is expanding to meet the needs of the expanding bureaucracy. What we have seen in this bill is we are 41% over base. That's a lot. It's 45 million over base in this bill. Madam Speaker gave you a very generous target, and Madam Chair, you stuck the landing, I guess. I certainly understand that there are investments that need to be made in state government, but I know too that there are a lot of people who are watching what's going on down here right now back in our districts, some who are very political like we are and some who aren't. And they see headlines on TV, they see headlines on newspapers, they might see posts on social media, and they're beginning to get a little concerned because they thought they were going to get a healthy rebate from the state. They thought they were going to see their Social Security tax eliminated. They thought that we would be taking care of some of the issues that they are deeply concerned by, and we're not. As other members, like Representative Zalesnikar, have pointed out, some of the nursing home issues have yet to be met. But this bill, while it has things that are good, is really designed to expand the bureaucracy. And we had asked for an estimation in some of the new employees that will be created. And I think there's some differing numbers out there, but we have, I think, 341, and it could be plussed up to a little bit more than that. And that's a lot of new bureaucrats walking the halls down here at state government. And that comes at a great expense. There are troubling things in the bill pretty much every couple of pages. And I will say this one thing, Madam Chair. There were times in committee that we wished that we could have had more time to discuss things. The schedule, not always conducive. I will be very honest, some of my members felt, and we have some brand new members, and they were hoping that we'd have not protracted and punishing conversations as we do sometimes here on the floor, but just honest to goodness conversations in committee. And I hope that as we move forward with maybe information bills this year and policy bills next, that we can do better. I will deviate from the state government finance very quickly to talk about the elections bill. Representative Torkelson referenced earlier that there was one bill from Republicans that was heard in the Elections Committee, and it was mine. Super controversial, so controversial that the League of Minnesota Cities, the Minnesota Counties Association, and the League of Minnesota Counties all wrote a letter, said, great bill, let's do this. And if you'll remember, it was a bill that said on the exterior of an envelope that we should print for an absentee ballot request, this is not an actual ballot. Super difficult. And Chair Freiberg, I actually had a brief moment of hope when my bill was called into your committee. There is not one Republican provision in the elections bill. Now, you know that Republicans vote in the state of Minnesota, and you know that Republicans get elected in the state of Minnesota, and I still cling to this notion that once upon a time there were leaders in the majority party and in power that respected on an elections bill the voice of the minority party and wanted to bring to that conversation the voice of that, much like Representative Newton did with the Veterans Bill. I was very grateful for that, by the way. We had an opportunity to really have a conversation in elections, and I guess I was the token Republican, and that's disappointing. There are a lot of things in this bill that spend lots and lots and lots of money. And I'm not gonna bring up the mansion again, but what this will do to many folks, because the funding source that you're going to go and obtain comes from the wallets of people who are around the state of Minnesota. Small business owners up and down Main Street are going to have to make tough decisions. Families may have to get more jobs because of an aggregated increase in spending that the majority party has pursued. And it's not just this bill, but this is the one we're talking about now. There will be reactions that have to happen. There will be some businesses that file bankruptcy or go out of business, or they just give up. They're like, I'm done. I certainly understand our needs to provide for government, but ideologically, we would like to see a lot less growth or flat. I was disappointed that we couldn't pursue some of the things that were in there from an IT perspective that could actually show that we were obtaining efficiencies and saving labor. We didn't do that. But again, I will say, my perspective, our perspective, this is a very bureaucrat-friendly bill. And Oscar Wilde got it right, that this bill serves to help the bureaucracy expand the needs of the expanding bureaucracy. Members, I cannot vote for this. I will not vote for this. I encourage a red vote. As much as I like some of the provisions, Madam Chair, I can't do it. Vote no.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Freiberg.
Thank you, Speaker. So I've heard a lot of talk about how this bill contains only Democratic provisions, or Democrat provisions, as the other side likes to say. I'd push back on that because many of these provisions do, in fact, have bipartisan support. The redistricting litigation reimbursement provision is also contained within a Representative Nash bill. Some of the technical bills from the agencies have bipartisan support. I'm not going to lie, the major party threshold provision is controversial, but it had letters of support from the heads of both the Republican Party and the DFL, which I would say makes it the very definition of a bipartisan bill, as well as the chair of the Grassroots Legalized Cannabis Party. The National Popular Vote bill has a Republican co-author. Even beyond those, Minnesotans of both parties support the provisions in this bill. Beyond that, this claim that the only elections bills that we should pass are those that have some artificially constructed level of bipartisan support is a canard. In 2017 and 2018, when the GOP last controlled the House, the majority passed several election-related bills off the floor on a partisan line vote. This included the repeal of the public subsidy program and a restriction on rulemaking by the Campaign Finance Board. And of course, there's the voter ID amendment that passed the legislature in the 2011-2012 biennium with unipartisan support in one chamber that was rightfully rejected by Minnesota voters. But even beyond that, it's worth mentioning that many of the election-related bills introduced by my GOP colleagues just aren't very good. There were 25 GOP-authored bills referred to the Elections Committee before the second committee deadline, some only barely. I don't know where the 71 number came from. I checked the website to see how many were introduced. 5 of those 25 bills would require photo ID to be displayed before anyone can register to vote or to vote. And I don't know why 5 bills on this topic needed to be introduced, but whatever. Voter ID is a bad idea that was rejected by Minnesota voters. 3 of the bills I mentioned would require provisional balloting in some circumstances. We voted that down twice, so I won't dwell on it. I'm not going to bend over backwards to include bad ideas in a bill to accommodate a pledge
Madam
made
Speaker, point of order.
Representative Nash, please state your point of order.
I rise under Mason's 124, personalities not permitted in debate. Bad ideas connote bad human beings. I would urge Representative Freiberg to stay out of that, and let's get straight.
Representative Nash, by talking about the ideas, he's not bringing personalities into the conversation. Representative Torkelson talked a lot about what he thought about Democrats in his speech, and Representative Freiberg is well within the bounds of reasonable debate. Representative Freiberg, you have the floor.
Thank you, Speaker. Even the ideas that weren't necessarily bad had problems. Representative Nash's bill that we heard did not receive warm support, as he put it. There were concerns raised in committee about the way it was drafted and potential inadvertent effects. There were multiple versions introduced last year, and I never heard an agreement about what language was preferable. There was also no amendment offered to put it here in the bill on the floor, which was well within the rights of the minority. I could list more examples, but I won't. So let's make this positive here. Setting all that aside, the elections portion of the bill protects our election workers, makes voting more accessible, and provides clarity on who is funding our elections. This bill will help ensure every eligible voter can exercise their civic duty to participate in our elections without barriers meant to suppress the vote. These are provisions that Minnesotans want. I am excited to support these provisions and to carry them into conference. I'm excited about the provisions in the state government portions of the bill. Thank you, Chair Klevorn, for putting together a great bill. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't particularly grateful for the inclusion of the State Emblems Redesign Commission that's in the bill. I'd like to thank Committee Administrator Simon Brown, Committee Legislative Assistant Mike Hermanson, researchers John Beeler and Lori Cousineau, nonpartisan staff Matt Gehring and Helen Roberts, Paige, Chris Ollendorf, and members of the committee on both sides. I do appreciate the discussions I've had with the other side of the aisle. We had some very lively discussions, sometimes too lively, but this is a great bill, and I would encourage members to vote green.
The member from Stearns, Representative Demuth.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, tonight we've had an opportunity to look at this bill in depth. And I do have just a couple of questions if Representative Klevorn would yield for just a couple of questions.
She will yield. Representative Demuth.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Representative Klevorn, we're giving major increases in a number of agencies in this bill and in other budget bills. And so my question, Representative Klevorn, is are there any cost savings provisions that you can identify within the bill?
Representative Klevorn.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And yes, there are, in fact, cost savings in this bill. You will see that there are reductions in the bill for offsets that are going into the governor's budget. We have changed the way, so there will be efficiencies in the way that we conduct the office of the governor and the interactions between the agencies. Instead of the process of billing and transferring funds back and forth between the agencies and the governor's office, there will now be a direct appropriation which streamlines the process, so there will be efficiencies there. With the investments that we are making in IT, you will be able to see that in this FTE count, which is much high, this number that you cite is much higher than the number that I've been able to calculate. But you will see that in the beginning there are more employees, and in some of the agencies then the employee number drops down. So yes, we are looking for efficiencies, and as our systems become better, especially in places like grants management, well, you'll see the grants management oversight. And with the ability for one agency to be able to communicate with another once we move to the cloud, we will find efficiencies there too, and there will be cost savings in that way. At this moment, what I would say to you is that many of the systems that we have are crumbling, and so we are spending money now trying to hold together old systems that are antiquated with paper clips and twine and bubble gum, and that's very expensive. And so, yes, it appears at this moment that this is a lot of money going into government. Anybody who says $400 million is not a lot of money is not telling you the truth. It is a lot of money, but it's a lot of money going into good things. The most expensive pair of shoes, my mother told me, is a pair of cheap shoes because you're constantly replacing them. Make the investments, do it right, make it work, and then you save money in the long run.
Representative Demuth.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you for that answer, Representative Klevorn. I do have just 2 more questions. Next question, if she would yield.
She will yield. Representative Demuth.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If I could draw your attention to the changes that are made to the Compensation Council, and that is found in Article 2, Section 19, starting on lines 33.16. Representative Klevorn, why is this bill removing the layer of accountability by allowing this unelected council to give pay raises to politicians without legislative approval?
Representative Klevorn.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's an important question. And what I would say to you is when the legislature makes the decision to move to this format, as it did with our own legislative salaries, we are not giving up our approval. What we are saying is that we are bringing in individuals who will do the research, look at the market factors, and make the decisions necessary so that we can retain and recruit the caliber of individuals to work in our agencies and to serve our government and to serve the people of Minnesota that is appropriate. The people of Minnesota do not park their brains when we ask them to do this. They use their skills, their talents to come up with the best answers. They have a vested interest in making sure that they are using tax dollars wisely as well. And if I could give you an example of where we do this in other places, since we talk a lot in this chamber about a GREET, and agriculture. A GREET is a fine example of where this body has said we are going to give dollars to citizens to make decisions about agriculture so that we can have the professors that we need at the University of Minnesota to do that. We do this in other places of government as well.
Representative Demuth.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Representative Klevorn, I appreciate the example. My concern, members, is that this is actually taking out the portion that says to assist the legislature in establishing the compensation, and that was to assist the legislature. If Representative Klevorn, Madam Speaker, if she would yield for one more question.
She will yield. Representative Demuth.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Klevorn, is it your belief that our governor and commissioners, all of whom stand to get major raises because of this bill, are underpaid?
Representative Klevorn.
Is it my belief? That's an interesting question that you ask. The opinion of Ginny Klevorn, the beliefs of Ginny Klevorn are not what I'm here to do. What I am here to do is to represent the people that have sent me here. The people who have sent me here have asked me to work to improve and enhance the systems that we have so that government works efficiently. And yes, I believe that creating this compensation council will help in that way, and I'm doing exactly what I was asked to do.
Representative Demuth.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative Klevorn. What I do know is that Minnesotans are not asking to have more than $9 billion in taxes raised to over the complete budget. That is not what Minnesotans sent us here to do. Billions of dollars in tax hikes are going to be in the transportation that we will hear later. Hundreds of millions of dollars in tax hikes are going to be in the housing bills that are going to be up tomorrow. Billions of dollars in new payroll taxes for the proposed paid leave are going to be coming our way. And billions of dollars in tax hikes in the tax bill, giving Minnesotans one of the highest tax brackets in the country. That's not what Minnesotans want us to do, not with a $17.5 billion surplus. So I have to ask myself, why do Democrats need these tax increases? Well, what I can see so far through this session is those tax increases are needed to pay for the millions and millions of dollars in wasteful spending. We're seeing pay raises for the governor, pay raises for the lieutenant governor, pay raises for legislators, pay raises for commissioners. And again, that has been mentioned earlier, we are seeing a $17,000 per month lease for our governor while the mansion is being renovated. $17,000 per month. Democrats also blocked the amendment last week that would have capped the U of M president's pay because they didn't think that $500,000 was quite enough. We're growing agency budgets across the entire DFL budget. There's 21% increase over the base for the Department of Education, 24% increase for the state auditor, 67% increase for the Attorney General's office, 75% for MMB, 137% increase for the Department of Administration, 155% increase for the governor's office, and I want to make sure everybody heard that, 155% increase for the governor's office. This bill puts $10 million into fixing roads around the Capitol, while residents in nearby low-income neighborhoods continue to have to swerve sometimes into oncoming traffic to prevent the crater-sized potholes that are in the area. The increases in this bill are outrageous. There isn't one Democrat sitting across the aisle who campaigned on growing state agencies by double-digit percentages and giving an already bloated bureaucracy thousands of new FTEs. But I must admit that this bill includes some of the most partisan election provisions ever seen in this chamber. It violates the decades-long bipartisan expectation that election bills have bipartisan support, and we want to make sure that our elections are secure, yet this bill makes them less secure. Minnesotans expect that their tax dollars are going to be spent wisely. They expect that we are doing everything to stretch the dollars that they are sending in to St. Paul. They expect us to find efficiencies where we can. But this bill fails to meet that expectation. It relies on billions in tax hikes to fund pay raises for politicians, road upgrades for politicians, and a new luxury office building, so members vote no.
The member from Hennepin, the author of the bill, Representative Klevorn.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I, too, would like to begin this evening in closing. One, it's a great bill, and I'm really excited about this bill. And my mother told me when I was a young girl, good will be attacked, but do good anyway. You know, it's the upbringing that I have. So I want to begin with the debt of gratitude to you, Lead Nash, for working with me. And you know as well as I do that this bill contains a lot of good work that we've worked on together. And I want to thank you for that cooperation and collaboration. I want to thank your researcher, Ryan Wickershon. Great job in committee, always there, just wonderful. To our own DFL team, I call them my brain trust, Amanda Rudolph, the CA, the researcher John Baylor, Jonah Westerman, my CLA. I also want to give a shout out to Eric Peterson and Sam O'Neill, who came in and did really great work for us earlier in the year, and Tenzin, our page, who just really was helpful and just did everything great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. To our nonpartisan staff, Matt Gehring, Helen Roberts, Chelsea Griffin, Without your expertise and your long knowledge, we couldn't do the work that's possible here. You know, I heard the word bureaucrat thrown around quite a bit tonight. And bureaucrat, what does that mean? When I hear that, I think about the dedicated public servants who come to work every day in service of our state. These people do not deserve pejoratives. They deserve our gratitude, and they deserve to be paid in a way that they can afford to go to the grocery store and buy their groceries too. In this bill, we are fulfilling the investments that Minnesotans did in fact send us here to do. That's why we're here. When we talk about, you know, crime in neighborhoods, and we talk about potholes and roads and crumbling infrastructure, it's because we failed to take the hard political decisions to raise the taxes to fix the roads. That's what we were sent here to do. We were sent here to make sure that government takes care of the obligations it has to its citizens. I want everyone to feel proud when you vote yes on this bill tonight. You are building the state that Minnesotans want to live in. Thank you very much, and I encourage a green vote.
The clerk will take the roll on the bill. Members, please vote. The clerk will close the roll. There being 70 ayes and 59 nays, the bill is passed as amended and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for the day is House File 1826. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 1826, number 4 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to state government, the first engrossment.
I recognize the author of the bill, the member from Hennepin, Representative Klevorn.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And when I introduced the finance portion, I said that that would be the introduction for this bill as well. This is the policy that shores up the finances in the other bill. So, members, I'm going to ask for your green vote when we get there. Thank you.
There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Nash moves to amend House File number 1826, the first engrossment. The amendment is coded A14.
The member from Carver, Representative Nash.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, now we have some bipartisanship going on. Members, this is an amendment to analyze the current cloud use that we use in Minute. If you'll remember, a couple years ago, I passed a cloud-first bill. We are actually using the cloud here at the state of Minnesota. This is a very simple amendment that says, as a result of the cloud that we are using, we are going to report the utilization of it, the percentage of use by vendor, and we're just going to present that back to the chairs, the ranking leads, and publish it to whomever might want it. Chair Klevorn and I have worked on this for a handful of weeks. We've worked with the stakeholders, and we have universal agreement that this is a good amendment, so I would appreciate your green vote.
Discussion to the A14 amendment. I recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Klevorn.
Thank you, members. This is a bipartisan amendment. I want everybody to notice that this is a bipartisan amendment. Please vote green.
All those in favor of adopting the A14 amendment, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails and the A14 amendment is adopted. There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Kosnick moves to amend House File Number 1826, the first engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A16.
I recognize the author of the amendment, the member from Dakota, Representative Kosnick, to explain the A16 amendment.
Mr. Speaker, I think we wanted to do the A15 amendment first.
Representative Kosnick, we are on the A16 amendment.
Okay. Members, the A16 amendment requires the redefinition of legislative days that's in the bill. It requires changes the effective date to not go into effect until the 24-25 biennium. It makes more sense to, if we're going to take this change of definition of a legislative day, to wait until the next biennium instead of doing it right in the middle of the current biennium. And I'd ask members to vote in support of the amendment.
Discussion to the A16 amendment. I recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Klevorn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. Members, I agree with Representative Kosnick, and I ask for a green vote.
Further discussion of the A16 amendment. Representative Kosnick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Chair Klevorn. I appreciate your acceptance of this and encourage members to vote in favor of the amendment.
All those in favor of the Kosnick amendment, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Nadeau moves to amend House File Number 1826, the first engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A28.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Nadeau.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members. This is a very simple amendment that removes one section in this bill that basically changes the law in how we confirm appointees by the governor. And it's not a huge deal to me one way or the other. I just think it's a knee-jerk reaction to, a problem that we face every day in politics. We don't want, if the governor makes these appointments and the Senate doesn't confirm them, we've got these people that sit there and serve in these very important jobs without a confirmation. Now, let's be clear, this is nothing new. It's been happening forever. We have over 170 of them right now. And so what the bill does is basically says that if within 60 legislative days the Senate doesn't affirm the confirmation of these appointees, then they automatically are confirmed. Now, there's two things. Number one, I think we should be consistent. For example, if you get appointed to the Campaign Finance Board, both bodies, the House and the Senate, have to within 40 days affirm they have to affirm the appointment of those Campaign Finance Board members. This is the absolute opposite. If you ever have a Senate that is not in touch with the governor and they want to mess with the governor's appointees, give them this language. Every 30 or 60 days, they'll get rid of every appointee. And if you want to screw up our agencies, that's a perfect way to do it. So I don't think this language is good for the state. I think it's knee-jerk. I think we should roll it back. I think we can talk about it. I appreciate, Representative Newton for getting it in the bill. I appreciate Representative Klevorn for bringing it forward. I think it's a bad policy for the state. And if we get to that point where we have a Senate that wants to try to punish the governor, this is the perfect way to do it. And I would hope everybody votes green with me on this amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Klevorn.
Thank you, and this is a perfect example of how good people can disagree. I'm just going to ask for a no vote, members.
Representative Nadeau.
And thank you. Sorry, I made an impassioned argument. I was hoping I was going to get some. We haven't had a lot of votes on Representative Klevorn just said that the good is going to be attacked, but do it anyway. So I'm just going to keep doing it. This is good work that I do. I request a roll call, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Representative Nadeau requests a roll call. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the amendment. Members, please vote. The clerk will close the roll. There being 57 ayes and 70 nays, the motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Kosnick moves to amend House Bill number 1826, the first engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A11.
The member from Dakota, Representative Kosnick.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. This is the A11 amendment to the state government finance. And as many of you may know, the State Board of Investment that manages a lot of the pension funds and different funds that the state holds has an obligation to its stakeholders to get the highest return on their investment. But recently, in the last couple of years, there's been a move for environmental, social, and governance modeling that may or may not be using that modeling, may or may not direct state boards and other investors to achieve the highest return of investment for its stakeholders. And so what this amendment does is make sure that we protect our Minnesota industries and that the state board must not invest in assets that intentionally exclude Minnesota-based energy, natural resource companies, or Minnesota-based agriculture or livestock companies to further the assets' environmental, social, or governance-based grade or rating. And instead, we should not be penalizing Minnesota companies, but yet help them thrive and grow and be the best that they can be, provide jobs for Minnesota families. So I ask your support for the A11 amendment to make sure that Minnesota industries are protected and can continue to thrive and have the capital that they need to continue to improve Minnesota lives. And Madam Speaker, I would request a roll call.
Representative Kosnick requests a roll call. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Representative Klevorn.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, I'm going to ask for a no vote on this. What we've seen in other states when these kinds of policies are put into place, the cost of borrowing does tend to increase. So I'm just going to ask for a no vote. But Representative Kosnick, you and I discussed in committee that we both agree that Minnesota industry is awesome, and we want to do all we can to support Minnesota industries. So members on this particular amendment, please vote no.
Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the amendment. The clerk will close the roll. There being 59 ayes and 70 nays, the motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Novotny moves to amend House Bill number 1826, the first engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A13.
The member from Sherburne, Representative Novotny.
Thank you, Speaker. My amendment is a simple amendment that would take place in 2027, would be when this would be enacted, when the next governor is sworn in. The bill or the amendment would just make sure that the next
Jane.
governor maintains a private residence. I feel this is important because I think the governor needs to have contact with real-life experiences. They need to feel the consequences of the policies that they have. They need to find out the pain of rising property taxes, rising electric cost for other utilities that will go off the charts, especially when we start dramatically increasing the cost of electricity. They need to find out when they try to do a home repair that they're competing against the state, who is pumping billions of dollars into the housing market and fighting for those materials. So that is my amendment, Madam Speaker, and I request a roll call vote.
Representative Novotny requests a roll call. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Representative Klevorn.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, I'm going to ask for a no vote. The details of this amendment are very interesting. I want you to think about this for a moment. If we have a governor who lives in greater Minnesota, let's just say in the farthest northwest corner of the state, and they come to the governor's residence, this amendment would say absolutely zero activities of the governor can be directed to that residence. That means the mail service for the governor could not be sent to the governor's residence. I understand the intention behind it. I appreciate the intention behind it, but members, please vote no.
Further discussion to the amendment. Representative Novotny.
Thank you, Speaker. And Representative Klevorn, I don't know if you read it, but I don't know where you're getting that not absolutely anything can be done at the residence. We just want them to maintain their own nest, per se. This is the people's house. This is the people that pay the bill. We think the governor should have some skin in the game. I recommend a green vote.
The clerk will take the roll on the amendment. The clerk will close the roll. There being 58 ayes and 71 nays, the motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Franzen moves to amend House Bill number 1826. The first engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A17.
The member from Douglas, Representative Franzen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. So the amendment, the A17, we simply want to assess the international, environmental, and social impacts of state policies within the Office of the Sustainability Government Operations. So members, as we know, that green energy relies on child and slave labor. And so as we push forward these quote-unquote sustainable guidelines and these goals to meet by 2030 and the EV mandates and the goals we have for that, we need to do a deep digging and assess those social impacts and the international impacts those policies have. So I've got this study right here. August of 2022 was accepted from the International Journal of Life Cycle Assessment, quantifying the life cycle health impacts of a cobalt-containing lithium-ion battery. Remember, somewhere in this study, I meant to highlight it, but I was so enthralled with what we were speaking on the House floor that I didn't do that. But I want to say that there was going to be needing another 25,000, don't quote me, but about 25,000 more children that were going to be needed to dig in the mines in order for the world's climate goals to be reached by 2030. So we need to just see what we're doing here in the state of Minnesota. We cannot be pushing to have more children and more slaves digging in mines and putting together solar panels for our green energy needs. So members, I would request a yes vote. Oh, Madam Speaker, I request a roll call. Thank you.
Representative Franson requests a roll call. Are there 15 hands? Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Representative Klevorn.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I actually looked into this amendment to see what it would be for us to do this. And when I checked with admin, they told me that this goes well beyond the current duties of the Office of Enterprise Sustainability, and it would cause them to have a substantial fiscal impact because they would either have to hire a large team of researchers or contract with the university. So since this is a policy bill and this would have a fiscal impact, members, I would ask you to please vote no.
Any further discussion? Representative Franson.
Madam Speaker, I would say when we have a $17.5 billion surplus and we are raising taxes by another, what, $10 billion? $10 billion. I would think that we could find some chump change to look at these policies and to make sure that we are protecting kids from having to go mine minerals and slavery to put together solar panels for us to achieve our goals. The chump change is there. It's in the couch cushions. As a matter of fact, just the other day, I was at the hotel, my hotel that I stay at while I'm down here, and I found $4 in the couch. So, I'm telling you, the change is there in the state of Minnesota's couch. Thank you.
The clerk will take the roll on the amendment. The clerk will close the roll. There being 59 ayes and 69 nays, the motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Gilman moves to amend House Law Number 1826. The first and Grossen as amended. The amendment is coded A29.
The member from Meeker, Representative Gilman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This amendment is a very simple amendment. It is removing the Minnesota Association of Townships as the exclusive organization which townships or county units can use to be reimbursed and their fees reimbursed as well. Just again, hearing information from townships wanting options, transparency. There's been some things that have happened this past year or so where a significant amount of money was scammed and is under investigation, not by the Minnesota Association of Townships, but they had fallen to a scam. And townships and local governments are looking for options for their people and their constituents, and that there be more transparency with taxpayer dollars. And so that's my amendment. Vote green.
Representative Klevorn.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I had an email exchange with the Minnesota Association of Townships, and they've asked us to not support this amendment, but they were also very confused as to where it came from. So I would encourage you to please reach out to the townships and just let them know what's going on. Because so at this moment, members, I'm going to ask for a no vote. If there's a conversation that we need to have next year during policy, I would be happy to have that conversation with you at that time.
Representative Gilman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative Klevorn. I as well have had great conversation with them this morning as well, and look forward to working with them and you as well on just having more conversations about what this would look like. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. The amendment is not adopted. There are no further amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File Number 1826, as amended.
Third reading as amended. The member from Dakota, Representative Hewitt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'll go real quick here. As Vice Chair of the committee, you're just there. But I'd like to thank Lead Nash. You were very graceful when I did have the gavel, and we got through those committee hearings together. And like you said, one of the more moving hearings was the public television hearing, and I appreciate you sharing your time. But Madam Speaker, to you, I really want to thank you for giving us Chair Klevorn. Her mediation skills proved really well in this committee many times. I know that the state is going to be in a much better place. You're going to be more efficient and more effective with what you did in this bill. So thank you, Chair Klevorn. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Carver, Representative Nash.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Representative Hewitt, for that. I do appreciate that. I appreciate you helping me getting through that day. I will be even more brief than the chair was in her intro. Members, I would urge a no vote. Thank you.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Klevorn.
Again, members, this is a great bill. I encourage a green vote, and thank you to everyone who helped make this bill possible.
The clerk will take the roll on the bill. Members, please vote. The clerk will close the roll. There being 71 ayes and 58 nays, the bill is passed. Did we amend it? We did amend it, right? As amended and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar for the day is House File 2887. The clerk will report the bill.
House File Number 2887, number 1 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to transportation, the third engrossment.
I recognize the member from Hennepin, the author of the bill, Representative Hornstein, to explain the bill.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. I'm so glad we have a chance to at least start the transportation budget bill for this biennium. Before we get going, though, I do want to thank a number of people. A big bill like this doesn't just happen. And so first and foremost, we have amazing nonpartisan staff that have helped everyone on both sides of the aisle. Andy Lee is the fiscal analyst, and Matt Burris is with House Research. Thanks to both of them. Amazing partisan staff, too. I just saw Joe Marble walk in. Joe is with GOP. There he is. Joe is with GOP Research, and he's waving. He's going to make my life very challenging here the next few hours and day. But at the end of the day, literally, he gives me a ride home. So that's how we roll in transportation, and appreciate your work, Joe. On the DFL side, Kevin Petrie is our wonderful committee legislative assistant. Enid Swaggart is the committee administrator, does amazing work. And Jennifer Nelson is our DFL researcher, also just putting in those long hours and doing really good work. We had Zach Cullen, a page this year, who was very reliable and came early in the morning. We're an 8:30 a.m. committee. And then Julia Waller, we had a wonderful U of M intern who helped out a lot in transportation this year. So thanks to Julia. And just a tremendous committee, members, both sides of the aisle. We had great contributions. I really want to thank Representative Petersburg. He has been a fantastic partner. And again, Naturally, we don't always agree, but we communicate very well. He's been very helpful with many process issues and has a number of provisions in the bill and has been a great contributor all around. So thank you, Representative Petersburg. And then, again, a lot of our members have again, contributed always in a very respectful and civil way in transportation. Many areas of agreement as well as disagreement. But I want to just highlight a couple of members on our side of the aisle, an amazing Vice Chair, Brad Tabke, and then Erin Cagle, Representative Cagle, Chair Cagle, who also, in addition to her contributions in our committee, chaired a new committee called Sustainable Infrastructure Policy. And a lot of work that she did in that committee is reflected in this bill. So a lot of gratitude as we start our bill discussion tonight. I do want to let members know, especially since we have a lot of new folks on both sides of the aisle, the Transportation Committee has jurisdiction over three areas of the state budget. The Department of Transportation, naturally, the Metropolitan Council, and also there are many transportation-related functions in the Department of Public Safety. Everything from driver and vehicle services, driver's licenses, the State Patrol, Office of Pipeline Safety, just to name a few. And so there's a lot of interaction with the Department of Public Safety and Transportation, and we deal with that budget in this committee as well. So as we start tonight, members, we're really at a very, very exciting, important historical crossroads, not only in Minnesota, but our country when it comes to infrastructure and transportation. I would even describe this as just an infrastructure moment in our history, really on par with some of the contributions, Representative Erdahl, of the Eisenhower administration that worked hard on a lot of infrastructure, and the New Deal. This Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act that was passed in November of 2021 is really on par with those other two federal initiatives. The timing of this couldn't have been more important. Coming out of this pandemic, this recognition that not only do we put people back to work, creating jobs, economic activity, but transportation infrastructure is transformative for our communities. These investments pay back in so many ways, whether it's addressing the climate emergency, whether it's lifting people up out of poverty, economic activities, moving freight, moving people. This is such a critical role and core function of government. And so for so many reasons, this is the time, this is the moment, not only nationally, but here in Minnesota, to really step up and address our infrastructure needs. Unlike many other divisions in state government, transportation does not have a lot of general fund interface. And so the dedicated funds that are raised for transportation, we don't have a surplus. In fact, some of those funds are declining. We had a transportation funds forecast recently from MnDOT. The gas tax, which raises, is really the workhorse of our system, that's declining and forecast to continue to decline. We've had this discussion many times, and that is playing out. So we need to raise revenue. If we're going to address those crater-sized potholes that Leader Damath just referred to a few minutes ago, we are going to have to raise revenue and make investments. And our needs are great. We started out the committee talking about those needs that have just accelerated over time because we have not made those investments. We continue to kick the can down that pothole-filled road and put off these necessary investments, billions of dollars People on both sides of the aisle have come with specific projects in your districts. We simply can't fulfill those needs without this new revenue. And that's what we do in this bill. And so, members, I wanted to just review why this additional revenue is so important and the results it creates. Only twice since 1988 has this legislature increased revenue for transportation beyond our core budgets. And the last time was in 2008. And it wouldn't be a transportation bill if I didn't mention my hero, my mentor, the late Representative Bernie Leader. Some of you had the opportunity to serve with him. Others may not know much about him. But the reason he's my hero, for many reasons, he was a World War II veteran. And I say Bernie Leader, may he rest in peace, because he passed just a few years ago. But he liberated forced labor camps, and an incredible war hero. And when he came back from World War II, he became a county road engineer in Polk County in his hometown of Crookston. And really, in the 1950s, really created a lot of the funding formulas that we use today to fund roads and bridges. So when he served in the legislature, he passed the 2008 bill that raised revenue, that we model many of our bills after. The reason we model our bills after Representative Leader's vision is that as a rural county road engineer, he understood that a successful transportation bill serves all modes of transportation in all parts of the state. As a rural county road engineer, he fought as hard for transit in the metropolitan area as he did for roads and bridges in his own community. And so when I had the opportunity to first chair this committee in 2013, I wanted to emulate Representative Leader. And so I, along with many others, and many on both sides of the aisle, Representative Torkelson was a part of this effort, created a Corridors of Commerce program that really one of the goals was to assist road and bridge infrastructure in greater Minnesota. So I, as an urban legislator, learned from Representative Leader that if I were truly to become a good mentee of his, then as an urban legislature, we needed to pay attention to the needs of rural Minnesota. And so, members, Representative Leader's bill, you can see the results of what we did in 2008. That time, the reason we passed that bill in 2008 was because of the 35W bridge collapse. That's what finally got this legislature to move on transportation. It took a bridge collapse. It took Minnesota being a national news story because our infrastructure was literally crumbling, and 13 people were killed on that bridge on an August night in 2007. So if you know about the DeSoto Bridge in St. Cloud over the Mississippi River, Trunk Highway 23, that was a result of that legislation. The Robin Drayton Bridge on the Red River of the North in Kittson County, the Hastings Bridge, the Lafayette Bridge, the Dresbach Bridge in Winona. I've got a whole page full of bridges that were either redone or built as a result of that bill that we passed in 2008. So we're at a similar place as we were then. And members, that's why I'm so proud of this bill, because we are, for the first time, funding small cities on an ongoing way. We have counties, we have cities, we have townships. They get money, and they get money through the Highway User Trust Fund. They're taken care of, but somehow small cities 5,000 and under, don't have that dedicated fund. For the first time, we do that in this bill. I want to thank members from both sides of the aisle for championing small cities. Representative Brand, Representative Olson, Representative Petersburg, all brought those. Representative Robbins had a bill for small cities. This is so significant, members. This is a very, very key part of this bill. But we also increased significantly funding for counties, for cities, and for our state highway system that is in such need. And of course, we have funding for corridors of commerce and bridges in this. Our transit systems are in such need of safety improvements, as well as the core functions of transit. Buses, arterial rapid transit, that's all funded in this bill. And then safety initiatives. Thank you, Representative Ream, for your road and pedestrian safety legislation in this bill, and Representative Tabke for your transit safety. We've been talking about transit safety for years. We're going to finally get that done in this bill. Representative Kraft, you have a very important provision here that addresses the fact that transportation is the #1 source of greenhouse gas emissions. You go a long way with your provisions in addressing that. Representative Elkins, I don't see, oh, there he is. Representative Elkins has key provisions to support deputy registrars in this bill, and I thank him for that. And finally, Representative Petersburg, your work to, over many years, to make sure that we can transfer some of that general fund money that goes to the auto parts sales tax and dedicate that to transportation. We have that in this bill, along with several other revenue raisers. So, to Representative Leader, I always want to channel his memory whenever we do a bill like this to make sure that all parts of the state and all modes of transportation are taken care of. These issues and these projects and these needs don't go away. They simply get more expensive. And so, members, I wanted to just pass the wand here to Chair Cagle, who will talk briefly about the IIJA match. We did have $1 billion and $75 million for our one-time general fund allocation and target. Most of that went to match that federal money. We'll be getting billions of dollars of federal money because of our one-time general fund match. But again, members, one-time money will not solve this problem, and that's why we have the new revenue that will be an ongoing boon to our infrastructure system. And so with that, Madam Chair, I would like to pass it on to Representative Cagle to talk about our federal piece here and the delivery fee, which is a new feature of our transportation bill.
The member from Anoka, Representative Cagle.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. You know, this is my 4th term, and you know, I've served on transportation every time. I've served in the majority and in the minority, and you know, the one thing hasn't changed. It's our needs in our transportation system. Year after year, we hear bill after bill on safety, congestion, crumbling bridges, highways that semis have to take detours around because it's unsafe. Representative Igo, I'm thinking about a specific road in your district. And so I just really want to, the pages are going to be handing these out. This is the report card that I want to draw your attention to, the report card that the pages are handing out. And, you know, the highest grade that we got on this report card is a B. And that's thanks to our aviation system here. And our roads got a D. Our bridges got a C, and you can see the rest of their grades here. And I know in taxes, Representative David said that D is a passing grade, but if I would have come home with a C average, I would have gotten grounded. And I'm pretty sure that accountability that my parents demanded in me instilled a strong work ethic, and was pretty happy to graduate with an A average. So I think it's just, you know, for me, it's the thing that's bonkers is not doing anything and then thinking that it's going to magically fill potholes. The Minnesota State Highway Investment Plan published in 2017 estimates that state roads are underfunded by $17.7 billion over the next 20 years. That's $835 million a year that we're underfunding our roads. Anyone driving around here has seen that. I do also want to talk about a little bit about the IIJA provisions in the bill, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. Between this bill and House File 26, which we passed very early in session, we have an opportunity to leverage nearly $8 billion in federal money to update our crumbling infrastructure and look towards the future. In this bill, we've established a local assistance match fund, which is nearly $215 million for local governments. So if one of your communities is awarded funding through the IIJA bill, then they can easily access up to $10 million for their local match requirements. And we're also helping communities across Minnesota by establishing grant programs to local governments that will help build capacity and develop infrastructure projects. And this is money that's going right into our local governments and through locally developed projects. So now let's get to the good stuff, the delivery fee. So yes, we are doing a 75-cent delivery fee. And one of the things that, like I said, I've heard through my 4 terms here is the definite need in our transportation system. And year after year, we've come and tried to address this funding gap in our transportation system. We've tried to raise the gas tax. We've tried to index the gas tax. We've done the transfer of auto part sales tax. And none of that's going to fill that hole. And so we really need to start thinking about how are we going to make sure that we're not only maintaining the roads that we have, filling that $17 billion budget gap in the future, but thinking about how we're going to fund our roads into the future. We know that the gas tax revenue is declining, and so we really need to think about creative new ways to generate revenue. And so this 75-cent delivery fee is something that I think is kind of a little bit unique to the gas tax because it's something that you can actually control. You can decide how many. This is something that it's not going to be per delivery. It's going to be per order. So you can bundle your packages. You can get everything delivered at one time during the week instead of just hitting the buy now, buy now, buy now, and having them all delivered in different orders. You can control this. There's also exemptions in this. So anything that is sales tax exempt except for clothing is also exempt from this delivery fee. So, and then this delivery fee also creates dedicated revenue sources into our small cities, into our town roads, into our large cities, and then also into HUTDF funding. But the really cool thing I think about this is it also gives stable and sustainable funding to organizations that are providing food support systems like Meals on Wheels. And so I'm actually really proud of this bill. I think it is a monumental piece of legislation that is going to do a lot of good. We're going to have lots of jobs out there on the roads, and I'm really hoping I can make it through this spring without popping another tire. So I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Hornstein moves to amend House File Number 2887, the third engrossment. The amendment is coded A91.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Hornstein.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. This is an author's amendment, and the first 10 lines are just simply a technical correction that came to our attention from our nonpartisan staff. Relates to the allocation for townships. Section 7, the amendment to Section 7 really comes out of some discussions, what we heard in both committee and particularly in Ways and Means, looking at Representative Novotny, who had some really good suggestions about this study for St. Cloud Transit that are incorporated in here. And then finally, members, there are a couple of non-controversial policy provisions that we have related to truck weights that have been around for a couple of years. One is a provision from Representative Burkle, the other from Representative Listlegard. We wanted to get those out of the committee. They're on the general register, so they're incorporated in this author's amendment. And then finally, we have a provision that DVS, the Department of Public Safety wanted to have related to commercial vehicles and pipeline safety as it relates to some federal conformity. There was some urgency around that. They wanted that incorporated. So that's the author's amendment. I'd ask for your support.
Any discussion on the author's amendment? The member from Anoka, Representative West.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank Chair Hornstein for including an amendment I was going to bring to this bill, but he included in his author amendment, and that is studying the elimination of North Star Light Rail. There was a study already in the bill, but one thing that it did not look at was potentially eliminating the light rail project, because it has around 300 riders a day. 300 riders a day for a multi-million-dollar light rail project. It is losing money out the ears. We could buy each person who rides it a Mercedes E-Class, and they could drive that to work, and we could pay for their monthly parking wherever they work. So it's great that this is included in the bill, and I want to thank Chair Hornstein for making sure it happens.
Any further discussion to the author's amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. There is another amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
West moves to amend House Law number 2887, the third engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A38.
The member from Anoka, Representative West, to your amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Currently in the bill, on page 10, line 11, it says $25 million in this fiscal year is dedicated to a trunk highway that contains at least 4 locations identified as high priority intersections in an intersection conversion study in the last 10 years, and is on a trunk highway that proceeds through at least 1 county within and 1 county outside the Department of Transportation's Metropolitan District, and has funding committed from non-state sources. My amendment clarifies that. It replaces it by making a specific dedication to Highway 65. Highway 65 is the worst road in the state. I'll talk about it more later because it's late and I have another amendment that I'm sure we'll get to. But it is the worst road in the state. It averages an accident every other day. And I want to make sure that this $25 million is dedicated to that road and doesn't go anywhere else. And I would encourage members' support.
There's an amendment to the amendment. The clerk will report the amendment.
West is moving to amend his amendment to House Law number 2887, the third engrossment as amended. The amendment to the amendment is coded A41.
Representative West.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With the anticipated acceptance of the underlying amendment, well, I guess I'll get on the record. Would Representative Hornstein yield to a question?
He will yield. Representative West.
Would you be willing to urge your members' support of the underlying amendment?
Representative Hornstein.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative West, yes, I support the underlying amendment.
Representative West.
With that in mind, I withdraw the amendment to the amendment.
Representative West withdraws the amendment to the amendment. We are now on the underlying amendment. Any further discussion on the amendment? Representative Hornstein.
Thank you, members. I would again reiterate my support for a yes vote. And our committee has spent a lot of time in Blaine. I've spent a lot of time there. We've had field hearings. We've had, I went recently, just a few weeks ago, to a town meeting up there. And this is a very, very important priority issue, both sides of the aisle. Representative Norris, I want to thank you for really bringing this, your passionate advocacy for Highway 65 for to the committee, and that's one of the reasons I enthusiastically support this.
So Representative West has withdrawn the amendment to the amendment, and we are on the underlying A38 West amendment. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. There's another amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Fogelman moves to amend House Law number 2887, the third engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A43.
The member from Nobles, Representative Fogelman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I am offering the A43 amendment. This is going to require that the delivery tax be itemized on invoices as a state delivery fee or tax. I just think it's important that the taxpayers have some transparency on this tax. Bigger companies and corporations are going to be able to eat this tax, and maybe some of your local people aren't going to be able to eat that tax, and they're going to pass it on to the taxpayers. And I think it's important that they see that they are being charged this tax. And I ask for member support.
There's an amendment to the amendment. The clerk will report the amendment.
Cagle moves to amend the Fogelman Amendment to House Bill number 2887, the third engrossment as amended. The amendment to the amendment is coded A99.
Member from Anoka, Representative Cagle.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, members. When I go to Target, I don't just see the, say, like, item and then the price. And so I do think transparency is a good thing, and so I like to know what my money is getting me. And so this amendment would just say that it would say that this is the road improvement and food delivery fee.
Discussion to the amendment to the amendment. Any discussion on the amendment to the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. The amendment to the amendment is adopted. On the Fogelman underlying amendment, discussion. Representative Cagle.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would suggest a yes vote.
Any further discussion on the Fogelman A43 amendment as amended? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion is adopted. The motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Fogelman moves to amend House Bill number 2887, the third engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A77.
The member from Nobles, Representative Fogelman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, this amendment is being offered so that our seniors and SNAP recipients are exempt from this delivery fee. This fee is regressive, and 75 cents is the same if you're ordering a $9 meal or a $3,000 couch. So not everybody is able to get out. They don't have a car. They are on a fixed income. They don't need more taxes hitting them. There's thousands of things at the grocery store that you can order that aren't taxed, but then there are some paper goods, diapers, that kind of thing, that are taxed. And so if you order those two things together, this fee is going to be hitting those people, and they need our help. They don't need more taxes. So I ask members to vote yes on this and to help our elderly and our fixed income people so that they are not paying this tax.
There's an amendment to the amendment. The clerk will report the amendment.
Cagle moves to amend the Fogelman Amendment to House File Number 2887, the third engrossment as amended. The amendment to the amendment is coded A101.
Member from Anoka, Representative Cagle, on your amendment to the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. So what my amendment would do would be to instate the language of the 297A, which is all of our sales tax exemptions, and then delete the rest of the amendment. Thank you.
Any discussion on the Cagle amendment? The member from Waseca, Representative Petersburg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm disappointed that this amendment to the amendment is here. We understand that the 75-cent tax, delivery tax, is fairly regressive in that it hits our low-income and SNAP people the hardest. And what are we getting? The only thing that it changes is that they don't have to pay it for clothing. The food, without the food, that's the same as everybody else. If it's non-taxable for food, you don't pay it for yourselves as well. I'm really disappointed that you are hitting the low income and those that are really needing the help with that. And so with that, Madam Speaker, I would request a roll call for this amendment.
Representative Petersburg requests a roll call on the Cagle amendment to the amendment. Further discussion on the Cagle amendment to the amendment. Representative Petersburg.
Again, I would just vote no on this particular amendment because it is regressive. And if we're really trying to help low income with some of these taxes, and transportation has a lot of new fees and revenue producers in this bill, I don't think we need to put it on the backs of these individuals. So I would ask for a no vote.
Further discussion, Representative Cagle.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, members. So in the 297A.67 exemptions, there is actually in subdivision 3, SNAP. So they are already, it says tangible personal property purchase with supplemental nutritional assistance program benefits, coupons or vouchers issued by the federal government under the SNAP is exempt. This exemption also applies to food under special supplemental food program for WIC. And so those programs are under this exemption are currently exempt from sales tax. And so, and also this is really about the way that we're using our roads. We're using our roads differently. We're not driving everywhere. I mean, we can sit in our basements and have our meals delivered to us, have clothing delivered to us, have everything delivered to us, and we're still using the roads. And so this is really about thinking about how are we gonna look at funding our road system in the future. And one thing I also wanna draw your attention to is the fact that this delivery fee creates a consistent funding source for programs like Meals on Wheels. And so when I was at the Cummins event a couple weeks ago, I was approached by somebody from the Agency on Aging, and they were really excited about this bill. They actually told me how much that they were worried about how they were going to continue to fund their programs, and that this would be a huge help to those programs. So please support the amendment to the amendment.
The member from Isanti, Representative Dowd.
And just a question about the underlying provision, and I guess I don't know who to direct the question to, if it's Representative Hornstein or Representative Cagle. Maybe one of them can, about the underlying provision. My question is, and then I'll ask, it sounds like Representative Cagle to yield. Can you just tell us, who is this underlying provision targeted at? Is it Amazon deliveries? Is it Bite Squad? Is it, who will the underlying provision impact? I was having trouble understanding that piece. If Representative Cagle would yield.
She will yield. Representative Cagle.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The underlying provision as far as the delivery fee. So, Madam Speaker, and what this is aimed at is fixing our roads and getting more funding into our system. And so what we need to do is make sure that that we don't have another bridge collapse. And we've known from the past that we're not going to get a gas tax passed, and that, you know, what is really frustrating to me is that thinking that we're going to magically see a fix by doing nothing. And so we have to take this seriously. We have to get more revenue into the system so that we can make sure that all of our roads across the state are safe for everyone to use.
Representative Dowd.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'm not trying to prolong things. I think you maybe, what I'm interested in, if she would yield again for a question, what I'm interested in is who gets taxed here, or what type of delivery, not where does the money go, I understand that, and what I'm interested in is what type of delivery, or what transaction gets taxed. Is it Amazon deliveries? Is it Bite Squad? I don't know. Can you give me some examples or tell me what this is designed to hit, or what service is getting taxed in order to pay this?
Representative Cagle.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Dowd. It is any retail delivery service. So Amazon, Bite Squad, DoorDash, eBay, Instacart, Hy-Vee, Cub, basically any Shipped. You know, there's lots of these different third-party apps that do this kind of delivery service. There's also individual grocery stores. I know when I go to grab my Hy-Vee delivery, it's $9.99 for delivery if I want it about a week out. If I want it that same day, I can get it for $20. But I can also just, you know, have somebody shop online for me and go and pick it up at the store too. So this is really about, you know, any kind of retail delivery that comes to your door.
Representative Doubt. Further discussion on the Kegel amendment to the amendment. Representative Petersburg, then Swedzinski, then Franson. Representative Petersburg.
Thank you. And if Representative Kegel would answer a question, yield a question.
She will yield to a question. Representative Petersburg.
Thank you. And Representative Kegel, you mentioned that this program would allow Meals to Wheels stay in business, et cetera. So could you clarify for us where the tax revenues for this actually goes?
Representative Kegel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and Representative Petersburg. There is a special revenue account that we create. I believe somewhere in this pile of papers here. But then the revenue goes to a small cities account. So part of it will go to HUTD, part of it goes to small cities, part of it goes to CASA, part of it goes to MSAST, part of it goes to townships, and then part of it, township roads, and then part of it goes to food delivery and nonprofit grants.
Representative Petersburg.
Thank you. I thought that's where it went, but your implication that Meals on Wheels would be benefit from this particular program isn't really directly related to that. I guess they have better roads, maybe that's a benefit, but it's not really going to keep them afloat. So the real issue is whether or not we should have this particular tax afforded against our senior citizens and those that are having trouble with making ends meet. And so, again, I would reiterate, please, no vote on this amendment to the amendment.
The member from Lyon, Representative Swedzinski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members. You know, Representative Dowd asked some pretty poignant questions. He said, who is this tax directed towards? And in all reality, the answer that we got from the author was pretty focused on, you know what, this is just a tax on Hy-Vee. This is just a tax on retailers. But in reality, who's really paying the tax? The single mother, the elderly, the folks that are afraid to go outside for COVID. That's who's going to pay this tax. This isn't some big corporation. This isn't getting back at some nasty son of a gun who's making too much money. This is the folks we know. This is your neighbor. This is a guy just trying to have lunch at work. Going to pay this. It's a darn shame. Here we sit on the legislature. Here we sit on the House floor tonight. Moving forward, an unprecedented piece of legislation that's going to hurt people, that's going to cost people. Well, it's just a tax of convenience. Why don't you just plan ahead and just order once a week? Then it's just 75 cents a week if you just plan ahead. Boy, oh boy. Wouldn't it be nice to look down your nose and say, just plan ahead? Ooh, that'd be fun. It's not fun. It hurts. There's a reason why the fiscal note's so darn high. Because they're planning on you, not planning ahead. Representative Petersburg, thank you for standing strong against this. And Representative Fogelman, vote no.
The member from Douglas, Representative Franson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. You know, so there's a lot of baloney going through this chamber this year. $17.5 billion surplus. And I want to remind the body that during the campaign year, Governor Walz promised $2,000 rebate checks. Okay? Now the tax bill, what, $275 for a single person? So thank you. I guess I'll be getting $275 of my taxes.
Point of order,
back
Madam
to
Speaker.
me.
Representative Long.
Madam Speaker, Masons 101, we are not debating the tax bill.
Representative Franson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Long, I am building a base for my discussion here on this amendment on the 75-cent delivery fee. Tax the rich, they say, tax the rich. Well, guess what? We're all rich now. We're all rich. If you are on MFIP, you're rich. If you're on a diversionary work program, you're rich. Medical assistance, you're rich. General assistance, emergency general assistance, Minnesota supplemental aid, MSA emergency assistance, Minnesota Care, supplemental security income, energy assistance, emergency assistance, supplemental nutrition assistance program, also known as SNAP. Earned income tax credit or Minnesota working family tax credit. I guess you're all rich. Because all the amendment, the Representative Fogelman amendment wants to do is exempt those individuals. We're not saying exempt the entire 75 cents. We're saying to exempt it from the poor. From the freaking poor. You should be ashamed of yourselves. I have a quote here from the author of the 75-cent delivery tax, where the author of this amazing tax the rich provision, a creative new way to generate revenue. A creative new way to generate revenue. Wow. If this is a creative new way to generate revenue, I can't wait to see what the majority party comes up with next. It's 75 cents today, and guess what? They're going to need some more freaking tax dollars 2 years from now when they bleed this state dry. And they're going to come back, and it's not going to be 75 cents anymore. It's going to be $5. No, I'm mad. Tax the rich. We're simply saying leave the poor alone. You should be ashamed of yourselves.
Any further discussion on the Kegel amendment to the amendment? There is a roll call requested. Representative Fogelman.
Thank you, Representative Franzen, for that. I am pretty disappointed in this amendment to the amendment. It essentially guts the amendment and just makes sure that the poor and seniors are paying this tax. When you don't have a car and you have to get a meal every day because you can't get out or you don't have any family around that can bring you anything, it adds up. You're paying $4,000 a month for assisted living maybe, and here you're going to add another $273 a year to your fixed income that not everybody can afford. So instead of causing more and more pressure on these people that are already paying more for utilities and more for groceries, let's let them be exempt from this tax. Please vote no on the amendment to the amendment.
The clerk will take the roll on the amendment to the amendment. The clerk will close the roll. There being 70 ayes and 59 nays, the amendment to the amendment is adopted. We are on the Fogelman A77 as amended. Discussion, Representative Fogelman.
Well, seeing that you all thought it was great to tax the poor and those that don't have the income that they need, I am going to withdraw this amendment.
Representative Fogelman withdraws her amendment. There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Fogelman moves to amend House Bill number 2887, the third engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A51.
The member from Nobles, Representative Fogelman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm offering the A51 amendment to delete the delivery tax from the bill. It's unpopular, and the fee is going to, in fact, impact every Minnesotan. Colorado is the only other state that has implemented this delivery tax, and they started with 27 cents, not 75. So here we are, 3 times higher than the state that's already got it enacted, and they have a lot of problems already. And a poll in Minnesota has asked citizens about this fee, and 80% oppose the fee. And I suppose we can understand their objections when we have an $18 billion surplus. One of our core responsibilities as legislators is to fund our roads and bridges. And right now, with the surplus, we have the ability to do that. We need to repair our roads and bridges. And I think one point on the floor, someone said that the surplus isn't a surplus, it's an underfunded. Well, our roads and bridges are underfunded, and we have the ability to take this money and appropriate it for what it needs to be done in this state. So we should be looking a lot harder at our roads and bridges. And maybe instead of spending $500 million on an office building, or $17,000 a month for our governor's house while the mansion is getting renovated, we should be putting our taxpayer dollars to better use. We're supposed to be responsible and fiscally conservative, so let's try and do that. I've said it on the floor, and I think it bears repeating that we're the 6th highest state for people leaving, not just leaving, they're fleeing. And why are they fleeing? Because we keep adding taxes and adding taxes. Night after night, we're passing bills that are adding more and more tax burden to our citizens and our small businesses. We are supposed to be doing things that are attracting people, and if we lower our taxes, we will have more spending and more tax dollars. I think just this last Thursday, the Democrat legislators in the Senate committee voted to remove this tax. The chair, Senator Ann Ress, was very happy when Democrat Senator Scott Dibble amended it to lower the sales tax and remove this fee from the Senate file. So I do not know why we would not do the same thing. So I'm asking you all to vote yes on this and remove this fee from the bill. And I ask for a roll call vote.
Representative Fogelman requests a roll call. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Discussion to the amendment. Representative Cagle.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, members. So transportation is based on a user fee system. We don't exempt anybody from gas tax. The Colorado bill also put in a 8-cent, they inflated, at the same time that they did this delivery fee, they also did a 2-cent gas tax to go up 1 cent annually up to 8 cents, and then inflated it. They did an EV equalization fee, they did a TNC fee, they did a personal car share fee, rental fee, taxi fee, road usage fee. And I actually worked with the author of the Colorado bill and learned lessons from them. And so instead of, we put in the small business exemption from the get-go, we also did some of the itemizing pieces that they have learned as well in Colorado. And so we learned from them. Our bill's going to be better. And so vote no on the Fogelman amendment.
The member from Waseca, Representative Petersburg.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And one of the things that first of all, I want to commend a creative way of trying to find some new revenue sources, and I think it's something certainly to explore. However, one of the things that I think we failed to realize is that all of those fees for cars and trucks and that the individual does, so do the delivery people that have these delivery vehicles. And on top of that, if you have something delivered to your house, you pay the fee, but if you go get it, drive to Walmart or whatever, pick the item and bring it back, you're actually providing just as much wear and tear on the roads as that delivery charge is. And so the thing is, why it makes it difficult for us to really say that that's justifiable for those particular costs. I do think it's important for us to start thinking about how we're going to fund roads and bridges. I do think it's important for us to figure out how we make a decision on how we prioritize all of the funds that we generate through our collection of taxes from our taxpayers and our constituents, and how do we fund all the responsibilities that we have as a state. Transportation is one of the biggest obligations that we have, one of the things that the Constitution says we have to support, and so we need to figure that out. However, adding a tax, in some cases on top of a tax, is not the way to go. But this particular situation, these individuals that also have the delivery services, they're providing all the license fees and other, sometimes commercial fees are actually higher than individual fees for roads and bridges, license tabs, et cetera. So they're already paying part of that. They're certainly paying the gas tax for either the diesel fuel or the gasoline. So those are already things that are being collected there. This is just an additional tax on top of it, paid by the consumer in a small fashion so that they don't recognize it's a real big deal. But when you add it cumulatively, there's quite a few $100 million that are being generated with this. I would certainly request a yes for this amendment. Let's reduce that. Let's go back to the drawing board and figure out how we're going to fund transportation.
The member from Isanti, Representative Dowd.
Madam Speaker, Representative Cagle, a question for you. You answered that this would include any retail order, so I started kind of looking through my phone. This might be a surprise to you, but I order a lot of stuff because I'm stuck here. I don't get to go to the store. And in Amazon, just for an example, I don't mean to pick on that one company, but in Amazon, I can order multiple things in one order, and they may come in multiple shipments from different warehouses. Or I can order 5 times during the week, 7 times during the week. I can order 50 times during the week, frankly, but I can select them all to come in one order or one delivery on my Amazon delivery day or whatever they call it. Are we taxing the order that gets delivered to us per order or per delivery? If she'd be willing to yield for that question.
Representative Cagle.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Representative Dowd, it's per order.
Representative Dowd.
Yeah, that's what I thought. For years I've always wondered why Democrats will say, we're going to tax the rich and we're going to make them pay their fair share. And since I have been here, of course it's tax cigarettes, and I don't, when they did that, it was like a 150% increase on the tax. It's been tax gas, tax liquor. These are all the most regressive taxes. These are all taxes that hit poor people. And I kept thinking to myself, well, that's it. I mean, they've kind of taxed, lower income people as much as they can. I'm a pretty creative person. I couldn't have thought of this. I couldn't have thought a way to punish low income people more than this. Somebody doesn't have a car and can't go to Target. I mean, I can go to Target from where I live, and it's I don't know what it is, 13 miles away or something. Probably more than that, 15 miles away. I would pay way less than this in gas tax to get to Target and come back, or Walmart or whatever. If somebody doesn't have a car and they can't get to that store, so they choose to have it delivered, you're going to tax them more than you're taxing me, and I live 13 miles from Target. Like, I seriously, and I'm pretty creative. I could not have thought a way of taxing low-income people and punishing them more than this. Like, this is really, really bad public policy, especially at a time when you have a $17.5 billion surplus. I've got a really creative solution for you. Let's take some of the money we've already over-collected from Minnesotans and use it for roads and bridges. Novel idea. I mean, it's in the Constitution that roads and bridges are a constitutional requirement, something that we're constitutionally required to fund. But we can't actually, you know what the problem is? The reason you can't afford to fund roads and bridges with this, I shouldn't say 17.5 billion. What's the real revenue number? 50 billion plus 17.5? What is it? I don't know. Let's call it $70 billion that you're collecting. We can't seem, and that's only general fund. I'm not even talking about gas tax money. We can't seem to find enough money for the constitutional requirements that we're required to fund. You know why? Because you're funding a whole bunch of crap that's not required. And you're using all the money you're collecting from Minnesotans that you told them you were going to spend on this kind of stuff. And that's why you have to create these new inventive ways to punish low-income people. I apologize because I used the word poor earlier, and that's a derogatory term. I don't think we should use it here. It's low income. And that's what you're doing. This is more regressive than the cigarette tax. This is more regressive than the gas tax. You'd be better off to just vote for the gas tax. This is more regressive than the gas tax. This is going to hurt low-income people even more than the gas tax. At a time when we have a $17.5 billion surplus, which is actually $19 billion before we artificially lowered the surplus number. It's twice the largest surplus we've ever had in state history. And we can't find enough money to fund the constitutionally required core functions of state government, along with schools and public safety. We can't find enough money to fund roads and bridges. Why don't you be honest with Minnesotans and tell them that we can't afford to fund roads and bridges because we're funding all kinds of waste, fraud, and abuse in state government that you refuse to uncover, that you refuse to look for. You go through all these grant programs where we've had fraud, hundreds of millions of dollars of fraud. Zero has been recovered. And we've done nothing to prevent that fraud from happening again. And that money just went out the door. And because we refuse to do that, we have to tax low-income people. 75 cents an order, not even a delivery. I got 2 orders delivered to my house yesterday. It cost me $1.50 for 1 delivery. And somebody who doesn't have a car and can't go and pick that up themselves, they're the ones who are going to get stung with this one. We should probably amend cigarettes and booze and gas tax into this too. We aren't taxing the wealthy here, we're taxing the low income. It's just at a time when we have a $17.5 billion surplus. This is your wake-up call. Do you hear me? This is it. Stop taxing low-income people. Stop taxing anybody. You're just driving people out of the state. That's why you hear numbers like we're the 6th highest state for people leaving the state. And yet you think this is such a destination. Everybody's going to want to come here because we're building trains. How's that working out for you? The only people that come here to ride a train are people that want to get robbed. You couldn't pay me to get on the train out here. Members, this is your wake-up call. This is your opportunity to remove this provision from the bill. 75 cents, you're going to tax low-income people. That's what you're doing. You're taxing low-income Minnesotans. The most regressive tax. I couldn't even have thought of this one. If somebody said to me, we really want to punish low-income people, how should we do it? I couldn't have thought of this. So good job. You really were creative. I hope you're proud of yourselves. Please, members, use this wake-up call to vote for this amendment and strip this out of the bill. You don't need the money. You do not need the money. This state is flush with cash. please vote yes.
Representative Swedzinski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would Representative Fogelman yield for a question?
She will yield. Representative Swedzinski.
Representative Fogelman, would you consider withdrawing your amendment so you don't save Democrats from themselves?
Representative Fogelman.
No, I'm not going to withdraw the amendment.
Representative Swedzinski.
Madam Speaker, members, you know, one of the first things I learned when running for the legislature was there's a big difference between an idea and a good idea. And there's a pretty bright line between the two. This idea is firmly on the side of an idea, not a good idea. DFL majority, as you sit and you ponder our fine representative from Southwest Minnesota's idea to help you out of a bind that you put yourself into. Think of your constituents. Think of the nation at whole that lies before you. Just learn from the folks that have forged ahead on an issue like this. Colorado, I think just 6 or 8 months ago, passed a provision fairly close to this, half the cost. Boondoggleville would be a kind word to call a bill and an idea like this. Boondoggle. If you would call, you know, I'm sure a lot of you either belong to ALEC or NCSL or another legislative organization where it's pretty easy. Just call them, email them, say, hey, what do you think of an idea like this? And I guarantee you, the legislators from Colorado would tell you, don't do it. Don't fall for the trap. While the money looks good in the fiscal note, the problems you're going to cause for yourself are mighty big. It's not worth it. Representative Fogelman, thank you. I wish you would have just said, hey, you know what, we'll pull the amendment, save them from themselves, but it doesn't seem like they're interested in that. Folks, think of the grandmas. Think of the single mothers. Think of the folks that are just stuck at home because they're afraid of COVID. I mean, come on. Representative Dowd, would you yield for a question?
He will yield. Representative Swedzinski.
Madam Speaker, Representative Dowd. What do you think the best course of action would be tonight?
Representative Dowd.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative Swedzinski. 2 things that I wanted to add very quickly. Number one, Representative Cagle, we do exempt people from the gas tax. We exempt farmers from the gas tax. And number 2, this provision not only disproportionately impacts low-income people, but it disproportionately impacts folks that live in rural areas like ours. We all have to drive a lot further to get to a store, and because of that, we already pay more in gas tax. So having this provision, we're actually going to get hit harder than folks in the metro areas because we probably order stuff on Amazon because it's easier than some of our districts. People have to drive 30 or 40 miles to get to a big box store or more. So this is a big deal. Not only do low-income people, but to rural areas. And we do exempt farmers from the gas tax, so just to correct the record on that. Thank you, Representative Swedzinski.
Representative Swedzinski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members. You know, one other thing before we have this vote tonight, I want you to think, have you had a large box store close because of product shrinkage in the last month or two? Have you had a business close because of product shrinkage? When those things happen, when a retailer closes in your community or files bankruptcy, that makes the product acquisition that much harder for your constituents. Brooklyn Center just closed a Walmart because of product shrinkage. Look it up when I say product shrinkage, what that means for a business. This tax that you're going to put on your constituents will adversely affect their ability to thrive and provide for the people that they love. Don't put government ahead of those families. Vote for Representative Fogelman since she won't save you from yourselves. Thank you.
The clerk will take the roll on the amendment. The clerk will close the roll. There being 62 ayes and 67 nays, the motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. Representative Long.
Madam Speaker, I move that House File number 2887 be laid on the table.
Representative Long moves that House File 2887 be laid on the table. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. House File 2887 is laid on the table. We'll revert to messages from the Senate.
Message from the Senate, Madam Speaker. I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following House file, herewith returned as amended by the Senate, in which amendments to concurrence of the House is respectfully requested. House Law Number 1999, an act relating state government, appropriating money for outdoor heritage, clean water, etc. The message is signed Thomas S. Bodden, Secretary of the Senate. Lillie moves that the House refuse to concur in the Senate amendments to House File Number 1999, that the Speaker appoint a conference committee of 5 members of the House, that the House requests that a like committee be appointed by the Senate to confer on the disagreeing votes of the 2 houses.
Representative Lillie.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. That is my motion, asking you to set up a conference committee. We have some differences, so we're asking that we can finish our homework with the legacy bill with the Senate. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
All those in favor of the Lillie motion to refuse to concur, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails.
Message from the Senate, Madam Speaker. I hereby announce the passage by the Senate the following House file, herewith returned as amended by the Senate, in which amendments to concurrence of the House is respectfully requested. House File Number 2073, an act relating to higher education. Message is signed by Thomas S. Bodden, Secretary of the Senate. Pelowski moves that the House refuse to concur in the Senate amendments to House File Number 2073, that the Speaker appoint a conference committee of 3 members of the House, and that the House requests that a like committee be appointed by the Senate to confer on the disagreeing votes of the 2 houses.
Member from Winona, Representative Pelowski.
Madam Speaker, that is my motion. There are significant differences in the Senate bill, and I'm asking for a conference committee.
All those in favor of the Pelowski motion to refuse to concur, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. Announcement by the Speaker.
The Speaker announces the appointment of the following members of the House to a conference committee on House File Number 1999. Lillie, Hussein, Herr, Cha, and Backer. The Speaker announces the appointment of the following members of the House to a conference committee on House File Number 2073, Pelowski, Walgamot, and O'Neill.
Message from the Senate.
Madam Speaker, I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following Senate file, herewith transmitted. Senate file number 2934. Message assigned Thomas S. Boddern, Secretary of the Senate.
First reading of Senate files.
First reading of Senate file number 2934, an act relating to human services. The bill is being referred to the Committee on Ways and Means.
Motions and resolutions. There are copies of the non-controversial motions at the House desk and online. If there is no objection, we will take action on these motions first. Hearing no objection, the motions prevail. Representative Long.
Madam Speaker, I move that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 11:30 a.m. Wednesday, April 19th, 2023.
Representative Long moves that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 11:30 a.m. Wednesday, April 19th, 2023. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. Representative Long.
I move that the House do now adjourn.
Representative Long moves that the House do now adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. The House stands adjourned until 11:30 a.m. Wednesday, April 19th, 2023.